My name is Sophia Lane, and sometimes I still smile when I remember the way they laughed at me. The sound of it, sharp, dismissive, echoing in the back of my mind, used to sting so badly. But now it feels almost sweet. This morning, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of my office in downtown Chicago, silk blouse soft against my skin, coffee cup warm in my hands. Below me, the city pulsed with energy, taxis honking, people rushing, the rhythm of ambition everywhere. And here I was, watching it all from the top floor, my name etched in silver on the frosted glass door, Lane Enterprises. The phone buzzed on my desk. One glance at the caller ID made my stomach twist, not with fear anymore, but with a quiet, ironic satisfaction. It was my cousin, Jessica, the same cousin who once rolled her eyes so hard at my ridiculous plan that I thought they'd get stuck. I let the phone ring twice, savoring the moment, before answering. "Hello." My voice was calm, steady. On the other end, a nervous laugh. "Sophia, hi. It's been a while. Listen, we really need to talk. We're in kind of a tough spot, and well, I couldn't help but think of you." For a beat, I said nothing. My mind flickered back to that night, the way they all mocked me, dismissed me like I was a foolish girl chasing fantasies. And now, they needed me. I was 22 when the dream first took shape. I wasn't rich, not even close. I was living in a tiny apartment in Indianapolis, juggling 2 part-time jobs, one at a bookstore and the other serving coffee at a late-night diner. But my head was always filled with ideas, little sparks of possibility that kept me awake long after midnight. I remember the night I finally worked up the courage to share my plan with my family. We were all gathered in my aunt's living room for Thanksgiving dinner. The smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon pie hung in the air, and the table was crowded with laughter, wine glasses, and too many opinions. I waited until dessert was being served, my palms sweating, my fork scraping nervously against my plate. "I've been working on something," I said, voice trembling but determined. It's a business idea. I want to create an online platform that connects small local artisans directly with buyers. No middleman. A space where handmade and authentic work can thrive." Silence followed, just long enough for hope to flicker in my chest. Then came the laughter. Jessica nearly choked on her apple pie. "You? Build a business? Sophia, you can barely pay your rent." My uncle shook his head with a smirk. "Sweetheart, stick to serving coffee. The internet doesn't need another silly website." Even my own mother sighed, disappointment heavy in her voice. "Sophia, dreams are nice, but you need something stable. You need to be realistic." Each word sliced deeper than the last. I tried to smile, tried to act like their ridicule didn't matter, but inside I was crumbling. My hands shook so badly, I set my fork down before I dropped it. The only person who didn't laugh was my grandmother, Eleanor. She reached across the table, her wrinkled hand covering mine. "Don't let them steal your fire, Sophie," she whispered softly enough that only I could hear. "Every big dream sounds foolish until it works." That night, I went back to my apartment, tears stinging my eyes, humiliation burning in my chest. I stared at the notebook where I'd scribbled every detail of my plan, logos, sketches, strategies, names. For a moment, I thought about throwing it away. But then I remembered my grandmother's words. I closed the notebook gently, like it was something precious, and whispered to myself, "They'll see. One day they'll see." That was the night I decided I would stand alone, no matter how hard it got. The months after that Thanksgiving were some of the hardest of my life. I was broke, exhausted, and constantly doubting myself. Every time I wiped down counters at the diner or shelved books at the store, their voices echoed in my head. "Stick to serving coffee, silly website." But every night, when the world was quiet, I pulled out my battered notebook and worked. I sketched wireframes, researched e-commerce platforms, taught myself basic coding through free tutorials on YouTube. My eyes would blur, my back would ache, but each small discovery felt like oxygen. The turning point came when I met Daniel Brooks, a regular at the diner. He was in his late 40s, a tech consultant who always sat in the same booth, laptop open, half absorbed in spreadsheets. One night, he noticed me scribbling designs in my notebook during a slow shift. "What are you working on?" he asked, curiosity softening his otherwise stern face. I hesitated. Sharing my dream had burned me once before, but something about him felt different. So I told him. To my surprise, he didn't laugh. He leaned forward, eyes sharp with interest. "That's not silly at all. That's scalable. And it's needed." Those words lit a fire in me. Over the next year, Daniel became an unofficial mentor, pointing me toward resources, introducing me to forums, showing me how to pitch to investors. He didn't hand me success, but he handed me knowledge. And that was priceless. Of course, nothing came easy. I faced rejection after rejection. Investors looked at me, a young woman with no degree in business, no pedigree, no connections, and politely dismissed me. Sometimes not so politely. "It's a hobby, not a business," one man sneered after my trembling pitch. But every no made me sharper. I rewrote proposals, refined presentations, and studied harder. I poured every spare dollar into my project, skipping dinners, wearing the same old shoes, learning to stretch $20 across an entire week. Then, one spring afternoon, everything changed. A small boutique in New Orleans agreed to pilot my platform for their handmade jewelry line. When the first sale went through, I sat at my desk and cried, not because of the money, which was barely enough to cover my phone bill, but because it proved my idea worked. Word spread slowly but surely. Another boutique joined. Then a candle maker in Portland. Then a leather craftsman in Austin. Within 2 years, my silly little website became a thriving marketplace. I didn't flaunt my progress. On social media, I stayed vague, keeping busy, exciting times ahead. Nothing that hinted at how big things were becoming. My family still thought I was scrambling between odd jobs, chasing a childish fantasy. And maybe that was my secret weapon. Their doubt kept me grounded, kept me hungry. I wanted the reveal to be real, undeniable, impossible to dismiss. So I worked harder. I negotiated contracts, hired a small but fierce team, and watched as numbers climbed higher than I ever dreamed. Late at night, when exhaustion threatened to swallow me, I'd hold my grandmother's old silver bracelet, the only thing of hers I kept after she passed, and whisper, "They'll see, Nana. One day, they'll finally see." And deep down, I knew that day was coming. 3 years after that Thanksgiving dinner, I found myself sitting behind a mahogany desk in my corner office, the Chicago skyline stretching endlessly outside my window. The hum of success filled the air, the quiet clicks of my team working nearby, the faint aroma of fresh espresso, the glint of sunlight reflecting off a commissioned art piece on the wall. That was when my assistant poked her head in. "Sophia, your family's here." My pulse quickened. They had called earlier, asking if they could stop by. They never visited before, never even pretended to understand what I was doing. Part of me expected this day, and part of me dreaded it. When the glass door swung open, they walked in, Jessica, my cousin, dressed in a brand-name jacket that still somehow looked cheap on her, my uncle, shoulders slouched from years of comfortable arrogance, my mother, cautious, eyes scanning everything like she couldn't quite believe where she was. The silence was almost delicious. Their eyes darted across the office, the sleek conference table, the glowing company logo on the wall, the bustling staff outside the glass walls. Jessica was the first to break. This is your office?" Her voice carried disbelief, like the words themselves felt impossible. I leaned back in my leather chair, fingers resting lightly on the armrests. "Yes. Welcome to Lane Enterprises." My uncle chuckled nervously, a sound that tried to mask unease. "So you really built this? From that little idea of yours?" I nodded, letting the weight of the moment hang between us. "The same idea you all said was foolish. The one you mocked at Thanksgiving." Their silence was deafening. My mother shifted uncomfortably, her eyes filling with something I couldn't quite place. Regret. Maybe shame. I stood, walking slowly to the floor-to-ceiling windows. "You know, when you laughed at me, I almost gave up. I almost believed you. But I didn't. I worked. I bled for this. And now, I gestured toward the city beneath us. Now I run one of the fastest-growing artisan platforms in the country. We've partnered with over 500 creators nationwide. Last quarter alone, our revenue crossed 8 figures. Jessica's mouth fell open. 8 figures? Yes, I said simply. And it's only the beginning. The shock on their faces was almost surreal. The same people who once dismissed me were now standing in awe, their pride swallowed by reality. My uncle cleared his throat. Sophia, listen, things haven't been easy for us lately. The economy, we could really use some help. And there it was. The moment I had always imagined. The tables turned, power shifted. I let the silence stretch, savoring it like the rich taste of dark chocolate. Then, calmly, I replied, help. Interesting choice of word. You didn't help me when I needed belief, or encouragement, or even basic respect. Instead, you mocked me. Jessica flinched, her face flushed red. We didn't mean. I cut her off, my voice steady, but not cruel. You meant it. You all did. And that's fine. Because your laughter became the fire that built this. I walked back to my desk, resting my hand lightly on my grandmother's silver bracelet, the only thing grounding me in that whirlwind of emotion. But let's be clear. If you're here for charity, you won't find it. If you're here to acknowledge me, then welcome. And if you're here to be part of my life moving forward, there will be conditions. The room was heavy, every breath sharp. For the first time, they weren't looking down on me. They were looking up. The silence in my office stretched so long I could hear the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. For years, I had imagined this moment, them standing in front of me, stripped of their arrogance, finally forced to see me for who I had become. Jessica was the first to speak, her voice sharp but unsteady. So what? You're rich now and we're not. Is this your way of rubbing it in? I shook my head slowly. No, Jessica. This isn't about revenge. It's about truth. You laughed at my plan, dismissed me, belittled me. But the truth is, I took that plan and built something extraordinary. And now, if you want to be part of my world, there are conditions. My uncle's jaw tightened. Conditions? From you? Yes, I said firmly. From me. Because I will not allow old patterns to poison what I've built. If you want my help, or even a place in my life, here's what it looks like. I turned to Jessica first. You've always hidden your insecurities behind sarcasm. You mocked me because you didn't believe in yourself. If you want my support, you'll need to pursue something real. Not just gossip, not just appearances. Find a passion and commit to it. Until then, don't come asking me for handouts. Her face went pale, lips parting as if to protest, but she said nothing. Next, my uncle. You taught me what doubt sounds like. Every time you called me sweetheart, with that condescending smirk, I swallowed it like poison. If you want my respect now, you'll have to earn it, by respecting others, not dismissing them. No shortcuts, no easy money for me. Show me you're willing to work or walk away. His eyes dropped, shame flickering across his expression. Finally, I turned to my mother. My voice softened, though it didn't waver. Mom, your words cut the deepest. Because I wanted your belief more than anyone's. You thought you were protecting me with realism, but what you did was clip my wings before I could even try to fly. If you want to be part of my future, then you need to stop leading with fear. Believe in me, and in yourself, without constantly asking what could go wrong. Tears welled in her eyes, rolling silently down her cheeks. I took a deep breath, letting my hand brush over the silver bracelet on my wrist, my grandmother's quiet strength echoing inside me. These aren't punishments. They're boundaries. Because success means nothing if I let the same people who tried to bury me keep pulling me down. I'll help, but only if you grow. Only if you change. Otherwise, I shrugged lightly. Otherwise, you can keep living exactly as you are. The words hung heavy, but they were liberating. For once, I wasn't the desperate girl at the table, begging to be taken seriously. I was the woman who set the terms. And judging by their stunned faces, They finally understood that. In the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. My family didn't disappear in anger the way I thought they might. Instead, small shifts began to appear, like cracks of light breaking through a long-closed window. Jessica, who once mocked every idea I ever had, started calling me with questions about starting her own boutique. She was clumsy at first, unsure, but there was a sincerity in her voice I hadn't heard before. For the first time, she wasn't laughing at someone else's dream. She was building her own. My uncle, the man who once smirked at my every word, sent me an email weeks later. It wasn't an apology, he was too proud for that, but it was something close. I underestimated you. Maybe I've underestimated myself too. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And my mother, she came by my office one quiet afternoon, holding a small box. Inside was a photograph of my grandmother Eleanor, younger, vibrant, her silver bracelet gleaming on her wrist, the same one I wore now. My mother's hands trembled as she handed it to me. "She believed in you before I did," she whispered, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry it took me so long to see what she saw. In that moment, something inside me softened. I realized that this journey wasn't just about proving them wrong, it was about proving myself right. And more importantly, about healing the wounds their doubt had left behind. Standing at the window again, I looked out at the skyline, the city alive with possibility. The girl who once worked double shifts at a diner was gone. In her place stood a woman who had turned laughter into fuel, rejection into resilience, and doubt into destiny. I touched the bracelet on my wrist, my grandmother's voice echoing in memory. Every big dream sounds foolish until it works. She had been right all along. I took a deep breath, allowing the weight of it all to settle. The pain, the triumph, the transformation. Then I smiled, not with bitterness, but with the calm certainty of someone who finally knew her worth. And as if the universe were waiting for the perfect cue, my phone buzzed with another message, this time from an investor eager to expand my company overseas. The future was wide open, mine to shape. I turned back to my reflection in the glass, strong, steady, and whispered the words that had become my truth. They mocked my plan, now I'm richer than them, in every way that matters.